Every 11 seconds, there is a phishing attack going on in the world. That means 3.4 billion emails that are just there to steal your password. And in 62% of all attacks that we see, as far as we know, there's a password that has been stolen involved. So there's a lot to uncover here. Thank you for joining. My name is Jan Koning, and from the Security Operations Center floor at Ontoit, we bring you Threat Talks, and today's subject is authentication. Let's get on to it.
Welcome to Threat Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
Let me welcome my guests for today. First of all, Harold Bosman, welcome. You are a senior endpoint engineer at AMSIX. What's your biggest fear in cybersecurity?
Thanks for having me. My biggest fear is AI-created phishing email.
It's going to be an interesting topic to talk about. On my other side, it's Luca Cipriano. He's a threat intel specialist at Ontoit, and he has the gift to explain very difficult things in layman's terms. I have the feeling we need this again today. Luca, what's your password?
Two are...
Whoa, no. That was way too easy, Luca.
No, that's not my password. Well, I actually don't know my passwords. I do use a mix of, multi-factor authenticator, password vault, sometimes even more than a second factor authenticator.
Well,
3, 4.
Today we will learn how you should be doing this, I guess. All right, so in this episode of Threat Talks, we're going to talk about authentication, obviously, what the risks are, and what we can do against it, and what is multi-factor authentication? Is it there to stay, or do we need different things? How easy is it to get a password? And even if you don't have a password, can we still get in? Well, we have 3 attacks that we're going to talk about. The Outlook Fancy Bear, the Google All-Auth multi-login vulnerability, and also the Ivanti EPM SQL injection attack. 3 very sophisticated ones that are very interesting to learn more about. And of course, as you know, we have a treasure hunt for you. At some point in this video and in this podcast, you will hear a code or see a code and take note of it, because if you send it to us, then you'll get a really cool T-shirt, and you can look at Luca today, and that can be yours. Also, you can go to threat-talks.com. There's many other material available on that website, also about the threats we talk about. There's infographics and links to more information. Harold, let's start with you. AMSIX, I said it briefly in my introduction. Can you please tell us what does AMSIX do, actually? What's your role in the world?
AMSIX is the abbreviation of the Amsterdam Internet Exchange. We were founded 30 years ago, and what we basically do is connecting different networks from companies, and by connecting you get faster speeds, and that makes it easier for all these companies to exchange data.
Yeah, to me, AMSIX is the internet. I was raised like that.
Yeah.
Without AMSIX, nothing works. That's my...
Yeah, if you look at it really black and white, then AMSIX is where the internet starts.
Yeah, and it's everywhere, right? It's a worldwide organization.
Yeah. We are in almost every continent.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot of organizations that depend on you as well.
Yeah.
That really need you for connectivity.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some really big players that all their data and their customer data is via our networks, and are connecting to other people's or other companies' networks. See it a bit like roaming. You go on vacation, you call via the local telecom provider, but you're calling with your mom, so you go from your vacation destination to the Netherlands, and these networks have to be connected
and secure.
And
that's where you come in.
Secure.
For the end user, yes.
Yeah. So the security is like our company basically plays a even more special role basically than just your own company. It's also the world around you.
Yeah.
So you said, what keeps you awake is this phishing mail that's generated by AI. You said that means it's more sophisticated, more real, so it's harder to distinguish from actual mails. Eh?
Exactly.
Do you have a lot of phishing being going around in your company?
Yeah, we see a lot of phishing and from various quality degrees, I would say. Some phishing email is really easy to find out, and again, that's why it's my biggest threat. Once people that are, into the security world, they can be misled as well. Because some of these phishing emails, they are so well crafted and composed, it's really difficult to distinguish from what's real and what's not, or what's malicious and what's not.
We're way past the old Nigerian prince email with all the grammar mistakes and
exactly.
Those days are gone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they take the logos from the official websites. They use the same intuition. They use the same words, and everything looks really like it's from the company.
Legitimate.
Yeah.
And that's all to steal passwords.
And it's all to steal your credentials. Yes, for sure.
Do you think it happens a lot?
Yeah. I mean, it's the easiest way to get into a company, to hack a company, to get information, to use it as a step up to get other information. Yeah.
But then there's also a multifactor. I mean, that's supposed to fix this.
You're saying that right. Suppose. And I think,
suppose.
and I think many years ago it really did work. But nowadays there are ways to get around it, or still steal your credentials, steal sessions, steal tokens.
Yeah, the problem is the session, because you're already authenticated. You don't even need the credential. You have the authentication, you have the session.
So the cache on your laptop, the cache on your phone is really vulnerable for hackers.
Should we still care about multifactor then?
I think it's a good start to keep everything secure. It's perfect? No.
But without it's even worse, way worse.
For sure. Yeah. So I really, advise everyone to use one way, one kind of multifactor to.
But it's a really good start, and I actually sometimes I get surprised as well, because talking with people around me and friends of mine, and I mention multi-factor authenticator or second-factor authentication, they're like, "What is that?" So there's already still like people that are not even aware about that.
Yeah.
And, that's raise awareness. It's important.
Yeah, but that's why. Yeah, just like you said, I mean, it's really important for companies to make their employees as aware as possible, and even use multi-factor in your private situation, not just for work.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So the easiest way to get a password is to lure someone into tricking. To put your passwords in somewhere. We have actually seen attacks where the second question was, "Hey, put in your multi-factor authentication code," and that for some version with the TOTP, for example, that actually works because you can generate one. And then the attacker uses this to register their own multi-factor device. Well, then you should be really careful in doing that. This is, by the way, in my opinion, a configuration error. You should never allow second factor, so to speak, to be registered without doing a very strong verification, confirmation email and all that. But still, it happens a lot. I mean, it's all to the application itself.
Yeah. It is
to help in that, and we have several examples. I mean, the last one, we have the whole trouble with the stolen iPhones, where you just get someone's phone, put in a 6-digit code, which is easy to shoulder surf basically, and then basically screw up the whole account because someone actually adds a code that shouldn't be there without a very strong authentication.
I agree. I mean, yesterday I was talking with a colleague, and he has this privacy screen on his laptop, and he is commuting by train, so that your whole commute is like public. And he said, when I'm working in the train, I see so many people around me not using a privacy screen, and what's there? Let's say enlarge it. So the shoulder surfing is then really easy. I mean, I have to use glasses. I mean, I'm not 18 anymore, so I sometimes do exactly the same thing on my phone. So it's easier for someone behind me to look at it. So I think that,
or you take a picture and zoom in on your device.
Exactly. So he told me that he's using the privacy screen, and I think that's really good practice.
Yeah, that's good. That's
really
an extra layer of security. Yeah.
Let's see if we can find any attack that doesn't involve simple password stealing. We have one prepared for you. It's called Outlook Fancy Bear. Luca, that's a nice one. First of all, the name. How do you?
Well, it's called actually it's a CVE, which is the 2023233397. Well, they have all these numbers. Nobody knows them by heart. But it's called Fancy Bear because it was discovered used by a fighting Ursa or Fancy Bear is like a threat actor that it's from Russia, and basically that's why the name.
Named after the bad guys that actually use it.
That were using it, yes.
Okay. And my understanding is this thing works, and you simply have to do nothing to get a victim.
Yeah, indeed.
That's terrifying. Tell me, how does it work?
Basically this specific CV leverages a functions of Outlook, which is a mail client everybody is familiar with. The problem, of course, we're going to talk about it more in depth in the deep dive that we're going to make. But in the short, basically, there is a function that allows the sender of an email to decide which sound should be played for a reminder. So what the attacker needs to do is just to send an email and schedule an appointment in the calendar or just a scheduled task with basically a sound that points to an external SMB share owned by the attacker. So
Outlook simply, it doesn't receive the email and then store it somewhere for you to open it or click on it. No, it will detect that there's an invitation in there, put it in your calendar automatically, and then you have nothing to do. The only thing you have to use Outlook. Many people do.
Yeah.
And then when the time is there, so the attacker, I guess, can then schedule when this thing happens.
The appointment exactly. Then, of course, you have a reminder sound that needs to be played, and because the email was maliciously crafted, then it will tell the Outlook, hey, play this sound, which is here, and here is the SMB share that it's outside on the internet controlled by the attacker.
Well, I think it's a very polite attacker then, because he's scheduling the moment you will be hacked.
It's letting you know, basically.
Probably when you're at home, because your corporate protection isn't there.
Well, it depends on how your company policies, but most likely yes, indeed. Basically, what happens then when your host is trying to connect to the SMB share, it will use NTLM to authenticate. NTLM has the anti-hash of the user, and basically the attacker can either at that point, if it has a network, if it's on the network, use NTLM relay attack, or it could get the anti-hash and then just basically crack it, just brute force it offline to get what's the password. And as probably everybody knows here, people tend to reuse their password. And once I have one password, then I can try to, authenticate to public-facing application, and eventually, if the user reuse the password, then it's a problem.
So not really the password isn't really sent by your client immediately, but a challenge to which you can basically in your own time brute force.
Yes.
And therefore, all the mitigations against brute forcing don't work anymore.
Yeah, and for the people that are interested on this, how this works in depth, we will explain also how the NTLM process authentication works more in the deep dive. So,
Harold, you mentioned that you have a minimum length of password policy active. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Because it sounds like you need a long one for this.
You need a long one. Yeah, I believe the standard is like 8 characters or something. It gets increased to 12, and I would say, start using at least 14 characters, because on a brute force, it's more difficult to figure out the password. You should see it the same way as you put your bike at Central Station, and a junkie can steal your bike very quickly. It's just hop and go, boom, and your bike is gone. Make it just as difficult as possible.
Use complex lock. Tie it well. Yeah, like for example, on some website where they allow me to do it, I have 64 character password, which are extremely long. You will never remember them by heart.
Yeah.
So you need a password vault, of course, to use that. But it will give a hard time to the
That's
attacker.
the same thing. That sometimes passwords complain that my password is too long.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
then I need to go down, but 32, 16 depends. But
So
Yeah.
for this
if you
particular
can,
attack, this
why
would
not?
help, huh?
yeah, well, it will make the attacker.
It's not the reality that people use passwords
No.
like that, especially since this is your AD password, and usually your AD password is known to you because you don't have your password manager on your logon screen for Windows.
No,
usually.
exactly. You should have it on your phone and then look at there. But
Should be a long one, yeah. Maybe make it a sentence or so instead of
yeah,
trying to
or
do
a
letters.
sentence also.
What about password retention policy? I mean, should we change it every 3 months? Is that good?
I'm not so sure. I mean,
He has an opinion. I'm sensing it.
yeah. I mean, we will talk about this later for sure. There is this, this faint line, thin line between functionality and and security. I think that people get tired of making up different passwords that fit the complexity of the policy. It just will not work. It's called password fatigue, and I think it's a real. It's also a real threat.
I love my wife 1. I love my wife 2. I love my wife 3.
If you have a good policy, that's not possible
Yes,
because the 1, 2, 3
exactly.
is. But yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's look into another attack that we see. It's actually a very sophisticated one, a difficult one.
Yes.
So probably going to be a longer deep dive.
Well,
It's
yeah.
about Google's OAuth multi-login hidden feature. That's nice of always if there's a hidden feature that's being exploited.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about that, Luca?
Yeah, sure. This one, of course, as you mentioned, is going to be a long deep dive because this one is quite sophisticated, but it's really nice. It starts.
Luca thinks these things are nice. We are all under attack. We suffer from it. We try to fend all these attackers off. He likes it.
Well, I mean, that's
Go
what
ahead.
keeps us busy. I mean, we are in this industry because we love the job, so it keeps us a bit spicy, I know
I
that
secretly love it as
people
well,
don't agree. A lot of people don't agree, especially when things happen on Friday evening. but it is funny in a way. It's nice. So basically, this the reason why this is sophisticated is because it leverages basically a functionality that was not documented in the Google OAuth in the Chrome browser, and basically. What it does. So there are 2 prerequisites, of course, for this to happen. The first one, this one was found on a info stealer, on a malware. So basically, the first thing is that your host is infected by this malware somehow, and the second one is that you have at least logged in on Chrome with your Google account at least once. So basically, this vulnerability leverages something that is called multi-login endpoint, which is a part of the Google OAuth.
In this case, endpoint doesn't mean the endpoint he's protecting, but it's the endpoint, the API endpoint.
Yes,
the
it's
server
a
that
different
you connect
endpoint.
to.
Yeah,
Okay.
indeed, it's the API, so it's a different endpoint. It's a functionality on the.
Yeah, in IT we're not really good at making up names. huh?
Yeah, there's either
mean
too
the
many
same thing to everyone,
acronyms,
yeah.
too many acronyms, or like confusing names. But yeah, so basically, what happened is that the malware managed to get the decryption key that the user has stored on his host, which is similar to a decryption key that the one that is used for the password stored in the browser. And with that one, it can get basically the Gaia ID and the encrypted token, which are the one that compose the session that is active, and then can decrypt the token. And with the decrypted token plus the Gaia ID, it can use the multi-login endpoint to generate new logins, new IDs and tokens, a new pair, which is valid. So basically, it's your session. This gets encrypted and sent to the command and control server.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So what you're saying is, of course, browsers have secrets. I mean, you
Yes.
authenticate with username, password, multifactor, and then, I mean, to avoid for every click on every site to have relog on all the time. That's impossible. So you have a long secret.
Yes.
That's been stolen. But with this hidden endpoint, you can actually use that same credential to create another one.
Mm-hmm.
That is then sent to the attacker. So now the attacker has
as your session, basically.
a session that he can use forever to generate new tokens again.
Those tokens can be used to generate new tokens, and this basically this survive also password reset and bypass multi-factor authenticator because you're already authenticated. So that's really nasty.
Wow. That's another nightmare for you then. Harold.
It's another nightmare.
But as we mentioned before, this is also because there is a trade between security and user functionality. So basically, you don't want a user every time to log in again and put a multi-factor authenticator again. So you need to store credentials to authenticate to services that needs authentication.
Yeah. So the only thing to mitigate in this case would be shortening the session.
Yeah, shortening the session, indeed. But also, I think you have something in place. Probably you're familiar with, at least with like access control or geo-blocking. Do you do something like?
We use trusted IP ranges, trusted locations to make sure that it is indeed the user that is authenticating towards an application or towards the laptop.
Yeah, that's something that can help as well. Like I remember using for example, Microsoft Defender. You have some cases that say impossible travel activities or this kind of things
indeed.
That they will tell you, hey, he connected 1 hour ago from England and now is in India. Like how's that work?
Well, you can get false positives, but it's better to have a false positive than lots of negatives. I had a user the other day who was watching a game in England, but you could only watch it from England. So
VPN.
He used a VPN.
Of course.
So then our SOC sent me a ticket from, hey, listen, the user is actually in the Netherlands, but he is authenticating in England. Can you please find out? And then the user told me, okay, I was using a VPN.
I know this guy who got arrested at entering the United States by the TSA, by the border security, because he filled out his visa form from an IP address that was just acquired from one of the countries in the Middle East that weren't on the green list. Let me put it like that. Because of a shortage of IPv4, of course, and the GeoIP wasn't updated, so they thought they would put it. He was in Syria, and then he got there. Yeah, you've been in Syria, no, and he was like, he was held in custody for two reasons. One is lying, and well,
but these things happen. I mean, technique is.
There's a limit to it, but it's good. Basically, what you're saying is to take a lot of measures all together, and then hopefully one of them. I mean, we only have to catch the bad guys once. That's the nice part of the equation.
Or you have to make it as difficult as possible. So,
indeed,
you're still listening to Threat Talks, and I'm joined here today by my two guests, Harold Bosman and Luca Cipriano, and the subject of today is authentication, and it's time for our threat hunt. So if you want to win this cool t-shirt that Luca is currently wearing, the code is 032405. And you can mail that to code@threat-talks.com. And while you are online anyway, take a look at that website, threat-talks.com, because a lot of information and about the threats that we have been talking about and are going to talk about, you will see infographics on that and a lot of more information. So go check it out. That brings us to the third and last attack that we're going to discuss today. Again, we're going to deep dive into it in a couple of weeks, and that's a solution, a problem in Ivanti EPM, so the endpoint management system. There's a SQL injection problem there. This software is used to manage endpoints, and that kind of software is really powerful. I mean, it's used to roll out new software, for example. What if you get access to this, Luca? I see you are already smiling. Hey, if I got a hold of that
I'm
system.
pretty sure that Harold has some experience with endpoint management solutions, and I think you can agree that those are like a really nice target for attackers.
We've seen SolarWinds. We've seen SolarWinds, completely different attack, but SolarWinds is a similar solution. And if that gets compromised, well, you could be in big trouble. So what happens? SQL injection, that's the attack.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So basically, first of all, for this attack to work, the attacker needs to have a network access. So it needs to be able to communicate with the server, for the EPM server.
And that's a server that's inside with the company, the thing that's managing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one that basically pushes the update to the endpoints or manage the endpoints. I mean, you can also have like remote control support, for example. So this vulnerability is like a SQL injection. SQL, so it's like a programming language used to interact with relational databases. So what happened? The attacker basically will just send a malicious SQL query, and this query can bypass authentication. So it will not need authentication, and then it will be able to interact with the database. But even worse is that if the server use SQL Express, which is like a light version of SQL, this specific injection can also lead to remote code execution on the server, which is even worse. So basically, once the attack is carried on, the outcome of this is that the attacker can take full control on any of the enrolled devices. So you can imagine that it will be a nightmare for you, for example.
That would be for sure a nightmare, yeah. Because from my role, I'm also responsible for managing all our laptops, all our endpoints. Yeah. Then I'll find the highest flat building and jump off it. I mean,
this is something that if it happens on a Friday evening, I'm pretty sure you're working over the weekend to fix. And
that is the moment I'll take vacation.
And it starts by just nothing. Yeah, well, you need access in the network somewhere.
Yeah,
it can be very unimportant system, could be IoT, could be whatever, as long as there is a connection possible from the place where you are. You don't need any credentials apart from that. It's just packets that you. So a malicious insider could also do it. Right?
Of course.
If your organization does it, and
it's something that is reality. What I've seen from the platform that I manage is that people go to say like you go to a Tor website to download illegal software, but it is like business software, say like Outlook, and you download that because you also want to have it at home. There is a multi-stage hacking on that particular application because they just add something.
Yeah, you mean that's repackaged
to the package.
Yeah,
and if it's done really well, then specific software has difficulties by finding out about it because it's really deep and it should be taken care of by the operating system. But it's a real threat. So I use solutions that go against this. And again, it's also awareness for the user. Again, not to download from these obscure places.
Yeah, that's something that happened a lot also in the past with video games that were cracked and all these kind of things. They basically repack it and add some extra software, and then suddenly you have a backdoor or a crypto miner.
So all these stores, EU wants you to, as a user, wants you to be able to have the freedom to download your software from any store. Yeah, I see that as a real threat.
Yeah,
because now in my MDM, I have to pay attention to that. I have to make a policy to prohibit it. And also, I mean, it goes even further because you have to adapt your policies, your internal company policies, to be able to deal with it and to mitigate this particular threat.
Yeah, this always was the advantage of using Apple with a curated store over Android, for example. Because it's at least much more, not 100%, but much better protected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, nothing is 100% protected, but
But there's tools, fortunately, that can actually make sure that we whitelist. I mean, we also use solutions that where we can whitelist software that can be installed. I mean, especially on corporate devices, that's the wise thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Check the signatures.
So I will prohibit the use of other stores besides the Apple Store.
We probably will as well.
Yeah, I think it's a must. I believe together with also like policies against bring your own device at work or this kind of things. Those are things that can help.
I mean, I have seen how easy it is for a malicious person to add that extra bit of code or a script that goes to the next stage. And then it's easier for the attacker to get access to your device.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, there's a lot of bad news we've heard today. Basically, passwords are fished all the time. People fall for it. We can do user awareness, but it's never watertight. Even if you don't know passwords, there's a way to steal credentials or to steal tokens that appear to be multi-factor authenticated. Multi-factor is even flawed. Now, is there some good news? I mean, if we could have like carte blanche and we would have to design proper ways of authenticating our users. What would be the ingredients? Maybe it's a little bit farther in the future, but there's always practicalities why things are not possible today. But what would be the ingredients that we need?
Well, I think a few things that Luca already mentioned is sessions, and I mean shortening sessions would be a nice one. Rotating passwords.
The shortening sessions, just to get to that point a little bit. So that's not an actual end user can do. Right? That's on to the IT departments to do so.
Absolutely.
So what kind of sessions are you talking about?
The sessions that a token is valid. I mean now, if you talk about Microsoft, you can extend your token validity for quite some time. I mean days and even weeks, as long as you don't log out. That's a possible risk. So if you enforce a session to be valid for say like 1 hour, but then you get back to the functionality because then each and every hour you have to re-authenticate. Well, your users will not be happy if they have to do that. So you have to find another way on top of that to keep it secure, say like rotating password, using passkeys, more awareness training, so people are aware of the possible threats wherever they come from. Follow the policies, the company policies. Don't go with your company device to obscure places.
Mm-hmm. And those fast changing passwords, and passkeys and everything, is that like multi-factor, but then done in a very short, an easy way to roll it out? I mean, because it's always a trade-off between how simple is it for the user to come up a couple of times. So we need to make it probably very easy for the user to generate a new password or to rotate everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we one of the things we are working on, and it's very hard even for a very technical company as us, to make sure that every authentication always is multi-factor and that you have to press a button on something all the time or whatever. And for a security company, it's probably easier to get that done. I mean, if you have to re-authenticate every 2 hours, it's a couple of times a day. But if that's all, and for the rest of it single sign-on, that's probably acceptable.
Yeah,
would be much better already. Huh?
Yeah.
But then hardware token. I mean, I don't like an SMS or whatever. That's also
hardware token is one of them. I mean, the number matching from the Microsoft Authenticator also helps.
But those are phished these days.
Every solution, I think, has some backdoor. I think you can just try to use several things together and then try to basically, implement the best policies.
I think MFA is always the best start to have that. To have that enforced on.
In my opinion, should be a must. Like MFA
on each and every
should be
user.
Always a must.
And I also think that MFA should be more known within the consumer world. I mean, even as a, even if you don't work for a fancy company, then it's all your data, it's your life. So I think that MFA for personal use is also really important.
Yeah. Should we mix this with password managers? MFA in your password manager?
Oh no, please.
I'm always surprised by those options. Password managers allow you to generate a TOTP.
No, that's true. In my opinion, it's really wrong. You have one point of failure. That makes no sense.
The second
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really hard to disable those in a global way at the moment. It should be a feature.
I mean, even SSO is kind of debatable in my opinion, because
Indeed.
SSO, even though it's really convenient, once you have the password from a user, you have access to everything. It's one of the reasons that we use different account names for specific websites, so that you cannot figure out which username is matching which password, even if you get the passwords. And that's a necessity. Otherwise, it's undoable, and it's way too easy for a hacker to get access to everything, and SSO is kind of feeding that. And I understand. I mean, yes, it makes things secure, but there is also a downside.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things wrong and also a lot of things we can do. And it's, I think the conclusion is that we need to do everything that we can.
But also based on, for example, imagine if you're working on a hospital, you can't really slow down the work of a nurse that needs to do something really fast because, it needs to log in again. So there is no one solution. It depends also on the company or...
I agree.
So it's always a trade, which is the best way.
There are several ways, and I think it's for a company, it's important to find out about the priorities. You have data leak prevention, you have your credential leak prevention, etc., etc. And I think it's for a company really important to focus on your priorities first, and then
Indeed, agree.
Homework for all of us. Well, that brings us to the end of this Threat Talk. Like I said a couple of times, there is infographics available to you. If you go to threat-talks.com, you'll have a plethora of information on the subject. And in the upcoming weeks, we'll do a deep dive into those threats and also specific measures against those threats and lots of other tips that you can apply in your own organization. Let me thank our guests. Harold, thank you very much for being here and for all your insights.
Thank you.
Luca, same to you. Thank you very much for making this possible. Thank you, our viewers and our listeners, to tune in into this episode of Threat Talks. Please like this video and subscribe to it, so you will get a notification next time. If you check the bell in your screen, then you will get a notification next time we air one, usually on Tuesdays. You'll get a new episode of us. And we'd like to hear from you. You can do it in the comments. You can send us an email, if that's your preferred way, to team@threat-talks.com. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, from the Onto It Security Operations Center floor, I say goodbye to you. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by Onto It Cybersecurity and M6. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.